Welcome back, Coinology. If you have ever looked at a simple 1-cent coin and thought it was just pocket change, today's story is going to completely change the way you see that tiny piece of copper. Because we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating Lincoln pennies ever struck in American history, the 1962 1-cent coin. And while millions of these coins were made and most are worth just a few cents today, certain rare examples, special conditions, and extraordinary grades have pushed values into shocking territory, with sensational claims and collector excitement surrounding numbers as high as $199 million in hype-driven headlines. So sit back, relax, and let's take a deep, detailed journey into the value, weight, symbol, design, minting process, rare varieties, grading impact, historical background, and the true market reality of the 1962 Lincoln cent. First, let's understand exactly what this coin is. The 1962 penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series that began in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of the birth of President Abraham Lincoln. That means this coin carries more than monetary value, it carries history. It was struck at the Denver Mint, which is indicated by the small d mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin. The D stands for Denver, and this mint mark alone tells us where the coin was produced. Now let's talk about the weight and composition, because this is one of the most important aspects collectors examine. The 1962 penny was struck in a bronze composition that consisted of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This was before the composition change in 1982, when U.S. pennies shifted primarily to zinc. The standard weight of a 1962 penny is 3.11 grams. That weight is crucial. If you ever find a 1962 penny that weighs significantly more or less than 3.11 grams, that could indicate a mint error or an unusual planchet issue, and mint errors are where big money often begins. The diameter of the coin is 19 millimeters. And the thickness is approximately 1.52 millimeters. The edge is plain, meaning it has no reading like quarters or dimes. These physical specifications might seem simple, but collectors carefully measure and weigh coins because even the smallest variation can signal rarity. And now let's move to the design, because the design is what makes the Lincoln cent iconic. On the obverse, or front side, you see the right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln. This portrait was designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB appear on the reverse at the bottom between the wheat stalks in earlier issues, though by 1962 they are very small and located on the obverse near Lincoln's shoulder. Above Lincoln's head is the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln is the word liberty. To the right is the date 1962, followed by the small d mint mark. The reverse of the 1962 penny features the famous wheat design, two wheat stalks curving along the left and right edges of the coin. At the top center you'll see E pluribus unum, the Latin motto meaning out of many, one. In the center is the denomination 1 cent, and below that is United States of America. This wheat reverse design was used from 1909 until 1958, but wait, here's something important. The 1962 penny does not have the wheat reverse. That design ended in 1958. So if you ever see someone claiming a 1962 wheat penny, that would be incorrect unless it's an altered or fake piece. The 1962 penny actually features the Lincoln Memorial reverse design. So let's correct that clearly. The 1962 penny has the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, not wheat stalks. The Lincoln Memorial design was introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., and if you look very closely at the center of the memorial, you can actually see a tiny image of the seated Lincoln statue inside. This level of detail on such a small coin is remarkable. And now let's talk mintage numbers, because this is where reality begins to separate from hype. The Denver Mint produced approximately 1,793,148,000, that's over 1.79 billion 1962 pennies. That is an extremely high mintage. With nearly 1.8 billion coins struck, this is not a rare coin in circulated condition. In fact, most 1962 pennies you find in pocket change are worth around 2 to 5 cents due to copper content, but here's where things get interesting. Condition changes everything. In coin collecting, condition is graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin. Coins that have never been circulated and retain their original mint luster are called mint state coins. A 1962 penny in circulated condition might only be worth a few cents, but in high mint state grades such as MS65, MS66, MS67, or even MS-68, the value increases dramatically. For example, a 1962D penny graded MS-65 read by a professional grading service such as PCGS or NGC may sell for around $10 to $25. In MS-66 red, it may reach $40 to $75. In MS-67 red, prices can rise into the hundreds of dollars. And at the very highest levels, MS-67 Plus or MS-68 red, auction results have reached several $1,000s. Now let's address the $199 million figure. As of actual verified auction records, there is no confirmed sale of a 1962D penny anywhere near $199 million. That number likely comes from exaggerated viral headlines or speculative clickbait. However, in the world of rare coins, extraordinary errors or one-of-a-kind transitional mint mistakes can theoretically reach astronomical figures if unique and historically significant enough. So, what kinds of errors could make a 1962D penny worth serious money? One possibility is a doubled die error. A doubled die occurs when the coin die used to strike the coin has a misalignment during its creation, resulting in visible doubling of letters or numbers. If a dramatic doubled die were discovered on a 1962D penny, especially one previously unknown, it could command a very high premium. Another possibility is an off-metal strike. Imagine if a 1962D penny were accidentally struck on a silver dime planchet or another foreign coin blank. That would create a rare mint error that collectors would fight to own. There are also repunched mint marks, die cracks, die breaks, cuds, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and other fascinating mint errors that can significantly increase value. Let's also discuss the historical context of 1962. This was during the presidency of John F. Kennedy. America was in the midst of the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis occurred in October 1962. The space race was accelerating. The United States economy was growing, and copper prices were stable. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to meet the demands of commerce. The Denver Mint played a major role in supplying coinage to the western United States. At the time, minting technology was advanced but still relied on massive mechanical presses. Each coin blank, called a planchet, was fed into a press where it was struck between two dies under immense pressure, imprinting the design permanently into metal. Now imagine nearly 1.8 billion coins being produced in 1 year at one mint alone. With such volume, small errors were inevitable. Most errors were caught and melted down, but some escaped into circulation. That is why collectors search rolls of pennies even today, hoping to find that one rare mistake that slipped past quality control. Let's talk about color designation, because for Lincoln cents this is extremely important. Copper coins are graded not just by numerical grade but also by color: brown, red-brown, or red. A full red coin retains at least 95% of its original mint red luster. These are the most valuable examples. Red-brown coins show partial toning, and brown coins are fully toned dark. A 1962D penny graded MS-67 brown might be worth significantly less than the same coin graded MS-67 red. Color alone can multiply value several times. Now let's explore the concept of copper value. Since the coin is 95% copper and weighs 3.11 grams, the melt value fluctuates with copper prices. While it is illegal to melt U.S. pennies for scrap metal in large quantities, the intrinsic copper value often exceeds 1 cent. That means even a worn 1962D penny technically contains more than 1 cent worth of copper. Collectors also pay attention to strike quality. Some 1962D pennies show weak strikes, particularly on Lincoln's hair details or the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Now let's continue even deeper into the fascinating world of the 1962D Lincoln cent, because what most people see as an ordinary penny can become extraordinary when you understand the layers behind mint production, grading rarity, collector psychology, and market behavior. When we left off, we talked about condition being everything. Now we're going to expand that idea further, because in the coin market, rarity is not always about how many were minted, it's about how many survived in elite condition. And this is where the 1962D penny becomes much more interesting than its nearly 1.8 billion mintage suggests. Out of those 1.79 billion coins struck at the Denver Mint in 1962, the overwhelming majority entered circulation immediately. They were used in grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and everyday transactions. Over the decades, these coins were scratched, worn down, exposed to moisture, oxidized, and sometimes even damaged. Very few people in 1962 were carefully setting aside brand new Denver pennies in protective holders. That means high-grade survivors, especially those graded MS67 red and above, are far scarcer than the original mintage number would make you think. In fact, the difference between an MS65 and an MS67 coin can mean the difference between a $20 coin and a $1,000 plus coin. Let's talk about grading more precisely. When a coin is graded, experts evaluate luster, strike quality, surface preservation, and eye appeal. On a 1962 D penny, graders look closely at Lincoln's cheek and jaw area. These are high points and often show contact marks from being stored in bags at the mint. Remember, after production, coins were dumped into large canvas bags containing thousands of pieces. As they rubbed against each other, tiny nicks formed. Those bag marks are what often prevent coins from achieving ultra-high grades. Now imagine a 1962 D penny that somehow avoided those bag marks, one that remained nearly flawless with blazing red luster. That coin becomes a condition rarity. And condition rarities are what drive auction excitement. Let's also talk about luster. Original mint luster on copper coins has a vibrant, almost glowing red shine when freshly struck. This comes from microscopic flow lines created during the striking process. As light reflects off those flow lines, the coin appears to radiate. But over time, copper reacts with oxygen and begins to tone brown. So a fully red 1962 D penny that still looks like it was struck yesterday is far more desirable than a dull brown example. Another important factor is strike sharpness. The Lincoln Memorial reverse has many tiny architectural details. The steps at the base of the memorial are particularly important to collectors. While the full steps designation is more commonly discussed for Jefferson nickels, sharp detail on the memorial steps still adds eye appeal and desirability to Lincoln cents. Now let's go deeper into mint errors, because error coins are where dramatic value spikes can occur. The 1962 D penny has been known to appear with several minor varieties, including repunched mint marks. A repunched mint mark happens when the D mint mark was punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles. Under magnification, you might see slight shadowing or doubling around the mint mark. There are also die cracks. As dies age, stress fractures develop. When a cracked die strikes a coin, it leaves a raised line across the surface. Some collectors love dramatic die cracks, especially those that run across major design elements. Then there are off-center strikes. If a planchet is not properly aligned when struck, part of the design may be missing. A 1962 D penny struck 10% to 50% off-center with a visible date can command significant premiums. Clipped planchets are another fascinating error. If the metal strip from which blanks are punched overlaps incorrectly, a curved portion of the coin may be missing. Authentic clipped planchets show a distinctive Blakesley effect near the rim opposite the clipped broad strikes happen when a coin is struck without the retaining collar in place. The coin spreads outward and appears larger and thinner than normal. These can be visually dramatic, but what about transitional errors? This is where collectors really dream big. In 1962, pennies were still made from 95% copper. In 1982, the composition changed to copper-plated zinc. If a 1962 D penny were ever discovered struck on a different metal planchet not intended for that year, such as a foreign blank or experimental composition, that coin could potentially be unique. Unique coins can reach seven-figure territory depending on verification and demand. Now let's address the psychology behind extreme price claims like $199 million. In the world of rare coins, headlines often exaggerate. A viral article may claim a coin is worth millions to attract attention. But serious collectors rely on auction records, third-party grading data, and verified sales.as of realistic market data. The highest confirmed auction results for a 1962 D penny in top mint state grades are in the thousands of dollars, not millions. However, that does not diminish the excitement. A coin originally worth 1 cent selling for $5,000 or more is still an extraordinary return. Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. Suppose a previously unknown doubled die variety is discovered on the 1962 D penny. The doubling is dramatic, clearly visible in Liberty and the date. It is authenticated by top grading services and only a handful are found. Suddenly, demand explodes. Registry collectors compete fiercely. Prices skyrocket. Could it reach 6 figures? Possibly. 7 figures? Maybe, under extraordinary circumstances. But $199 million would require historic, one-of-a-kind status rivaling the rarest coins in American numismatics. Now let's talk about storage and preservation, because protecting a coin is critical. Copper is reactive. If stored improperly, it can develop spots or discoloration. Collectors use acid-free holders, mylar flips, or certified slabs from grading services. Never clean a coin. Cleaning destroys original surfaces and drastically reduces value. Another factor that influences price is population reports. Grading companies publish how many coins they have graded at each level. If only a small number of 1962D pennies exist in MS68 red, that scarcity drives competition. If more are discovered and submitted, prices can fall. It's also important to remember that the coin market moves in cycles. During times of economic uncertainty, tangible assets like rare coins can increase in popularity. Wealthy investors sometimes diversify into collectibles. This can temporarily boost prices. Let's also explore the historical environment of 1962 more deeply. The Denver Mint was operating at high efficiency. The U.S. economy was expanding. Coin demand was rising due to population growth and commerce. The Cold War atmosphere created a sense of urgency in industrial production. The minting of billions of pennies reflects how rapidly the nation was growing. Each 1962D penny passed through multiple stages before entering circulation. Copper alloy was rolled into long strips. Blanks were punched out. The blanks were annealed in furnaces to soften them. They were cleaned, upset to form raised rims, and then struck between dies under immense pressure. After striking, they were counted and bagged. Think about the journey. A 1962D penny may have been used to buy a newspaper covering the Cuban Missile Crisis. It may have been dropped in a jukebox playing early 1960s rock and roll. It may have been saved in a child's piggy bank. These coins are silent witnesses to history, and today, over 60 years later, they still circulate occasionally. That longevity is remarkable. Now here's something interesting. Many collectors overlook 1960s Lincoln cents because they assume high mintage equals low value. But condition rarity changes that equation. Finding a true gem from 1962D is much harder than people realize. If you are searching for one, focus on original bank-wrapped rolls if possible. Rolls stored undisturbed for decades sometimes yield high-grade coins. Estate sales can also be treasure sources, and here is the exciting truth: the vast majority of valuable coins were discovered by ordinary people who took the time to look carefully. Now we move even deeper into the advanced world of the 1962D Lincoln cent, because this is where casual curiosity turns into serious collector knowledge. In this part, we are going to explore advanced variety research, real auction behavior, grading population dynamics, registry competition, investment strategies, and the long-term future outlook of the 1962D penny in the numismatic marketplace. When experienced collectors analyze a coin like the 1962D penny, they don't just look at mintage and grade. They study die varieties. A die variety occurs when the working die itself has a distinct difference from others used that same year. Because dies were individually made and manually prepared in the early 1960s, subtle differences exist between different die pairs used at the Denver Mint. One area specialists examine closely is hub doubling. During the early 1960s, the U.S. Mint still used a multi-squeeze hubbing process to create dies. If the die shifted slightly between impressions from the master hub, doubling could occur. On some years, like 1955 or 1972, dramatic doubled dies became famous and extremely valuable. While the 1962D penny does not have a widely known major doubled die comparable to those legendary varieties, specialists continue to search for new discoveries. All it takes is one newly identified, strong doubled die variety to completely reshape demand. Advanced collectors use high magnification microscopes and digital imaging tools to study the lettering in Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and the date. They look for notching at the corners of letters, split serifs, and clear separation lines. Machine doubling, which is common and less valuable, must be distinguished from true hub doubling. Knowing the difference requires experience. Let's now talk about repunched mint marks in greater technical detail. In 1962, mint marks were still punched into working dies by hand at the mint facility. This means the small d under the date was manually added after the die was produced. If the punch was misaligned and corrected, remnants of the earlier punch can remain visible. Under magnification, you might see slight shadow impressions around the D. While minor repunching may add modest premiums, dramatic examples in high mint state grades can be more desirable. Now let's explore auction case studies and market behavior. When a 1962 D penny graded MS67 red comes up for auction, it enters a competitive arena driven by registry collectors. Registry sets are competitive online collections hosted by grading companies where collectors try to assemble the highest graded example of every coin in a series. Points are assigned based on grade and rarity. A collector attempting to build the finest possible Lincoln Memorial cent set will aggressively pursue top population coins. If only a small number of 1962 D pennies exist in MS67 plus red or MS68 red, two determined collectors can drive bidding far beyond price guide estimates. This phenomenon is known as registry pressure. It has pushed relatively modern coins into surprisingly high price territory. However, it's crucial to understand population reports. If grading companies list, for example, 10 coins in MS67 plus red and 2 coins in MS68 red, that number can change. If collectors crack out MS67 coins and resubmit them hoping for an MS68 upgrade, population figures may increase over time. As more top-grade coins enter the market, prices can soften. Now let's examine long-term investment strategy. Is the 1962 D penny a good investment? The answer depends entirely on grade and purchase price. Circulated examples are not investment-grade assets. Even most MS65 examples are relatively common. The real potential lies in condition rarities at the extreme high end of the grading scale. Investors who focus on ultra-high grade examples often consider several factors. First, eye appeal. Even within the same numeric grade, some coins look better than others. Second, color stability. Copper can change over time. Red coins that maintain original surfaces are preferred. Third, certification by respected grading services. Fourth, market timing. Buying during slower auction cycles can yield better deals. Let's also discuss copper market influence. Although the melt value does not directly determine collectible value, rising copper prices increase public awareness of pre-1982 pennies. When media reports mention copper being worth more than 1 cent per coin, more people start saving older pennies. Increased saving reduces circulating supply but does not necessarily increase high-grade availability, because most saved coins are circulated. Now imagine a hypothetical but plausible scenario. Suppose a pristine original roll of 1962 D pennies, untouched since 1962, is discovered in a bank vault. Inside that roll could be several coins grading MS67 red or possibly higher. The discovery of such a hoard could temporarily increase top-grade supply and impact prices. This has happened before in other coin series. Let's also address the myth factor. Claims of $199 million often circulate on social media platforms without verified evidence. These sensational numbers are typically based on misunderstanding, confusion with entirely different coins, or purely fictional exaggeration. For perspective, some of the most famous coins in American history, coins with legendary status, have sold for tens of millions of dollars, not hundreds of millions. For a 1962 D penny to reach $199 million, it would need to be historically unique, likely struck in the wrong metal, possibly a one-of-one mint error with extraordinary documentation. But here's something important: coin collecting is not only about the possibility of extreme value. It's about the thrill of discovery and the preservation of history. Every 1962 D penny represents American industry, craftsmanship, and economic life during a pivotal era of the 20th century. Now let's analyze strike characteristics specific to the Denver Mint in the early 1960s. Some specialists believe that Denver strikes from this era can show slightly softer details compared to Philadelphia issues, particularly in Lincoln's hair and beard. However, fully struck Denver examples do exist and are highly desirable. We should also discuss spotting and toning. Copper coins are prone to carbon spots, small dark areas that develop over time due to environmental exposure. Even a tiny spot can reduce a coin from MS67 to MS66, dramatically affecting value. That's why pristine surfaces are so rare. Another advanced topic is die rotation errors. Occasionally, the reverse design may be slightly rotated relative to the obverse. Minor rotations are common and usually carry small premiums. Dramatic rotations, such as 90 degrees or more, are far scarcer and more valuable. Collectors also study die markers. Tiny scratches or polishing lines unique to a specific die pair can help identify which die struck a coin. Variety attribution specialists catalog these markers to track and classify different die marriages. Now let's talk about long-term outlook. As time passes, fewer 1962D pennies will remain in original red condition. Environmental exposure slowly reduces the number of top-quality examples. Over decades, this natural attrition can gradually increase scarcity in elite grades. At the same time, interest in Lincoln cents remains strong because they are accessible entry-level collectibles. Many collectors begin with pennies. That steady demand base provides market stability, and if you are serious about maximizing profit potential with a 1962D penny, focus on the following: search for the highest grade possible, look for blazing original red color, examine carefully for doubling or mint errors, avoid cleaned or altered coins, consider professional grading only if the coin appears exceptional, and remember, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary often comes down to microscopic details invisible to the naked eye. Now we go even further into the financial comparisons, competitive ranking, advanced profit strategies, and how the 1962D Lincoln cent stands against other Lincoln Memorial cents in the marketplace. Because understanding value is not just about one coin in isolation, it's about how it fits into the larger Lincoln cent universe and how collectors strategically position themselves for maximum upside. First, let's compare the 1962D penny to other early 1960s Lincoln Memorial cents. In terms of mintage, 1962D had nearly 1.8 billion coins struck at Denver. That's very high. But other years in the early 1960s also had massive production numbers. The early 1960s marked a period when coin demand in the United States was rapidly increasing due to economic expansion and population growth. However, mintage alone does not determine elite rarity. What matters is how many survived in gem condition. When comparing 1962D to other memorial cents like 1960D, 1961D, 1963D, and 1964D, specialists often study population reports at the MS67 and MS68 red levels. Sometimes a year with a similar mintage may have far fewer surviving ultra-gem examples. If 1962D has fewer coins graded MS68 red than a neighboring year, it may actually be condition scarcer despite the large production total. Now let's talk about the grading ceiling. Every coin year tends to have a practical grade ceiling, a level above which almost no coins exist. For many Lincoln Memorial cents from the early 1960s, MS67 red is attainable but challenging. MS68 red is extremely rare. The difference between MS67 plus red and MS68 red can represent thousands of dollars. If a 1962D penny achieves MS68 red, it enters elite territory. At that point, value is no longer driven by copper content or even general availability, it's driven by registry set competition and population rarity. Wealthy collectors assembling top-ranked Lincoln cent sets are willing to pay significant premiums for the single finest known example. Now let's analyze real-world profit strategy. There are generally three major approaches collectors use with coins like the 1962D penny. A first strategy, roll searching. This involves purchasing bank rolls or original wrapped rolls and carefully searching for high-grade examples. This is low cost but requires patience. Most coins found will be circulated or lower mint state. But occasionally, a near gem or gem example appears. Second strategy, cherry-picking at coin shows or online listings. Some sellers may underprice coins because they do not recognize subtle qualities like exceptional luster or near-upgrade potential. Skilled buyers examine coins carefully, looking for pieces that could grade 1 point higher if submitted. Third strategy, registry targeting. This is a higher budget strategy where collectors deliberately acquire the highest certified examples available, anticipating long-term demand from competitive registry participants. Now let's talk about risk. Copper coins are vulnerable to environmental damage. Even coins graded red can slowly tone or develop spots over decades if storage conditions fluctuate. That means preservation is critical. Climate-controlled environments, proper holders, and minimal handling are essential. There is also grading risk. A coin that looks like MS67 to one person might grade MS66 when submitted. Since the value difference between grades can be significant, submitting coins requires careful judgment. Now let's explore long-term demand. Lincoln cents are one of the most widely collected coin series in the world. Nearly every American has handled one. That familiarity creates a massive base of potential collectors. Unlike obscure series that only attract specialists, Lincoln Cents have generational appeal. As older generations pass collections down to younger ones, interest in completing date and mint mark sets continues. The Memorial Reverse Series, which includes the 1962 D penny, ran from 1959 to 2008. That's nearly 50 years of coins. Completing a full high-grade set is a serious challenge, especially at the upper end of the grading scale. Now imagine you are building the finest possible memorial cent set. You need a top population 1962D. If only a few exist at MS68 Red, competition intensifies. This is how relatively common coins can reach four-figure prices. Let's also examine market liquidity. Lower-grade 1962D pennies are extremely liquid. You can sell them easily for small amounts. High-grade certified coins are also liquid within collector circles. However, the buyer pool for ultra-high-grade pieces is smaller but more financially powerful. Now let's address again the $199 million concept. To put this into perspective, some of the most expensive coins in history include legendary gold rarities with extremely low mintages and dramatic historical stories. For a 1962D penny to reach anywhere near $199 million, it would need to be historically unique, perhaps the only known example struck on a wrong metal planchet like a gold blank, authenticated beyond doubt, and accompanied by a sensational discovery story. While that scenario is highly unlikely, the point remains that extreme rarity combined with uniqueness can create unprecedented value in numismatics. However, based on verified market history, realistic top-tier values for a 1962D penny remain in the thousands to potentially tens of thousands under extraordinary conditions, not hundreds of millions. Now let's explore another important factor: appeal premium. Even within the same numeric grade, some coins simply look better. Vibrant red color, smooth surfaces, strong strike, and no distracting marks can create a premium beyond standard price guides. Auction psychology also plays a major role. When two bidders become emotionally invested in winning a coin, prices can temporarily exceed logical estimates. This is especially true when the coin is labeled finest known or top pop. Let's also discuss die deterioration. Late die state 1962D pennies sometimes show flow lines that create a slightly grainy appearance under magnification. While not necessarily reducing grade, heavy die deterioration can impact eye appeal. Another advanced concept is toning patterns. While bright red coins are most valuable, some collectors appreciate attractive rainbow toning on copper. However, for memorial cents of this era, original red color usually commands the strongest premiums. Now think about time. It has been over 6 decades since 1962. Every year, coins are lost, damaged, cleaned, or corroded. The supply of pristine, untouched examples gradually decreases. That slow attrition subtly strengthens long-term scarcity in high grades. From an investment mindset, patience is essential. Coins are not typically short-term flip assets unless purchased well below market value. The strongest gains often occur over years or decades. Let's imagine you purchased a flawless MS67 Red 1962D penny 10 years ago. If registry competition intensified and population reports remain stable, the value today could be significantly higher. At the same time, market corrections can occur. If several new MS68 coins appear, prices could soften. That's why understanding supply data is critical. So, what is the true takeaway from Part 4? The 1962D penny is not rare in general circulation. But in elite condition, with blazing red color, sharp strike, and clean surfaces, it becomes a different category entirely. It transforms from pocket change into a competitive registry asset. Its massive mintage hides the challenge of finding near-perfect survivors. Its simple copper composition hides its vulnerability to time. Its modest face value hides the excitement of grading upgrades and auction battles, and while claims of $199 million remain unrealistic in documented market terms, the real magic of this coin lies in the possibility that an overlooked piece in an old jar, drawer, or bankroll could still surprise someone, because in coin collecting, history and opportunity are often separated by nothing more than careful observation. Now we move into one of the most important and fascinating areas of this entire discussion: the difference between hype and reality, extreme hypothetical scenarios versus verified auction data, and how media exaggeration can influence public perception of a coin like the 1962D Lincoln Cent. Because here's the truth: in today's digital age, information spreads fast, but not all of it is accurate. Headlines claiming a 1962 D penny is worth $199 million can circulate online and create excitement, confusion, and unrealistic expectations. But serious collectors operate on evidence, documentation, auction archives, grading data, and verified sales records. Let's break this down logically and strategically. First, we must understand what drives a coin into the multi-million-dollar category. Historically, coins that have sold for extraordinary amounts share several characteristics. They are extremely rare, often one of a kind, they have major historical significance, they are well documented with provenance, they are in exceptional condition, they often involve gold or other precious metals, they have been widely recognized in the numismatic community for decades. The 1962 D penny, in its normal form, does not meet these criteria. Nearly 1.8 billion were minted. It was produced during a routine year of high-volume minting. It is made of copper alloy, not gold. It does not represent a major historical transition year. So where could a massive value come from? Only from something extraordinary and unique. Let's imagine an extreme but theoretical scenario. Suppose a 1962 D penny was struck on a gold planchet by mistake. Not copper, but actual gold. And suppose it was authenticated by multiple top grading services, tested metallurgically, and proven to be a genuine mint error rather than a private alteration. Now you would have a coin that should not exist. If it were truly unique, the only known 1962 D gold cent error, its value would no longer be based on copper cent demand. It would be based on uniqueness, shock value, and high-end collector competition. In that case, could it reach millions? Possibly. But $199 million would still require unprecedented circumstances. That figure would place it among the most expensive collectibles in the world. Now let's compare hype versus actual auction data. In the real market, high-grade 1962 D pennies certified at MS67 red have sold in the hundreds to low thousands depending on eye appeal and timing. In extremely rare MS68 red condition, prices can climb significantly higher, potentially into several thousands of dollars. Notice the difference between thousands and hundreds of millions. The gap is enormous. So why do exaggerated numbers spread? Because the idea that a common penny could be worth a fortune captures attention. It creates hope. It motivates people to search through change jars. And in some cases, websites intentionally use extreme numbers to generate clicks, but experienced collectors understand how to separate possibility from probability. Now let's analyze collector behavior in response to viral claims. When stories about rare pennies worth millions go viral, several things often happen. People begin hoarding all pennies from that year. Coin dealers receive floods of inquiries. Online marketplaces fill with overpriced listings, grading submissions temporarily increased. However, once reality sets in and people realize their circulated brown penny is worth only a few cents, enthusiasm declines. This cycle of hype and correction is not new. It has happened repeatedly in numismatics. Now let's discuss how smart collectors actually profit in environments influenced by hype. Strategy 1. Education advantage. When others chase unrealistic dreams, educated collectors quietly focus on verifiable rarities. Strategy 2. Condition focus. Instead of searching for impossible million-dollar errors, they look for underappreciated high-grade examples. Strategy 3. Data tracking. They monitor population reports from grading companies. If MS68 population remains extremely low, they understand long-term scarcity dynamics. Strategy 4. Timing. They buy during hype cooldown periods when prices stabilize. Now let's dive into economic fundamentals of value in collectibles as determined by supply and demand intersecting at a price point. For a 1962 D penny in circulated condition, supply is massive and demand is modest. Therefore, price remains low. For a 1962 D penny in elite condition with few surviving examples, supply is tiny and demand from registry collectors can be strong. Therefore, price increases. If a one-of-a-kind error existed, supply would be 1. Demand among elite collectors could be fierce. Price could rise dramatically, but for a $199 million valuation, demand would have to exceed that of the most legendary coins ever sold. Let's also explore long-term survivorship. Each year that passes reduces the number of original red 1962 D pennies. Copper oxidation continues. Coins are mishandled. Cleaning attempts destroy surfaces. Children use them in crafts. Over decades, natural attrition slowly strengthens the scarcity of pristine examples. That gradual reduction benefits top-grade holders. Now imagine 30 years from now. Suppose only a handful of flawless MS68 red coins remain truly pristine. Registry competition intensifies. wealth concentration increases among collectors. It is entirely possible that prices could multiply from today's levels, but again, growth from thousands to perhaps tens of thousands is realistic. Jumping to hundreds of millions requires an unprecedented event. Now let's discuss another important factor: authentication risk. When extreme value claims appear, counterfeiting risk rises. Unscrupulous individuals may attempt to alter mint marks, plate coins with gold, or fabricate errors. That is why third-party certification is critical for high-value coins. Never trust extraordinary claims without professional verification. Now let's explore a deeper philosophical perspective. The 1962 penny represents something powerful: accessibility. Anyone can find one. Anyone can examine one. Anyone can learn from one. It's a democratic collectible. You don't need to be wealthy to participate. That accessibility fuels ongoing interest in Lincoln cents. And sustained interest creates long-term stability. Now let's shift toward advanced economic modeling. If we analyze potential appreciation rates, assume a top-grade 1962 penny worth $5,000 today grows at an average annual rate of 5% over 30 years. That would roughly double to around $10,000. If registry competition increases and growth averages 8%, it could reach over $50,000 in several decades, still far from $199 million, but significant relative to a 1 cent face value. That ratio, from 1 cent to thousands of dollars, is already extraordinary. And now consider this: the true excitement is not just in price. It is in the hunt, searching rolls, examining mint marks, studying luster, weighing coins to detect anomalies, comparing under magnification. The 1962 penny teaches patience, observation, and research discipline. And here is something many overlook: even if you never find $1 million coin, the knowledge you gain studying coins has value. Understanding grading standards sharpens analytical skills. Learning about mint production reveals industrial history. Following auctions builds economic insight. While sensational headlines focus on impossible numbers like $199 million, the real story is much more grounded and much more sustainable. The 1962 Lincoln cent is a high-mintage copper coin that becomes scarce only in elite condition. Its realistic top market values are measured in thousands under verified circumstances. Its long-term appreciation potential depends on great scarcity and collector demand. And its mythical million-dollar reputation reflects the power of storytelling in the digital age. We continue by comparing the 1962 Lincoln cent to other key Lincoln Memorial cents, exploring extreme rarity case studies, understanding what truly makes a penny legendary, and analyzing the theoretical conditions required for a coin like the 1962 to reach extraordinary levels of value. This is where we combine historical, technical, and market analysis to fully appreciate the dynamics at play. Let's begin with extreme rarity comparisons. While the 1962 penny is common in circulated form, some Lincoln Memorial cents from the same era are far scarcer in top grades. For example, coins like the 1969s small date or the 1969s double die obverse are among the most famous Lincoln cent rarities in terms of price realized at auction. These coins were produced in smaller quantities or have dramatic minting anomalies that distinguish them from standard circulation examples. By contrast, the 1962 lacks a widely recognized major double die or major mint anomaly, but condition rarity can still create competitive value. The key takeaway here is that scarcity in high-grade MS67 red or above is far more important than sheer mintage numbers. While 1.79 billion coins were minted in Denver in 1962, only a tiny fraction have survived untouched and in perfect condition. That's why experienced collectors always emphasize eye appeal, original luster, and surface quality over raw mintage. Next, let's discuss what truly makes a penny legendary. Legendary coins usually have one or more of the following characteristics: historical significance, coins associated with major events, transitions, or prominent eras. For example, the 1943 bronze cent made during the wartime steel penny era, extremely low surviving population, only a handful of examples exist in high grades, major mint errors or anomalies, dramatic double dies, off-metal strikes, or misstrikes that are visually obvious. Provenance and documentation, coins with a well-documented ownership history, often linked to famous collectors or discoveries. Desirability among top collectors, coins that compete in registry sets or among elite collections. The 1962 penny satisfies some of these criteria but not all. Its historical significance is moderate. It's a Denver mint coin struck during the Cold War era, which is interesting but not unique. Population scarcity exists only in high mint state grades, not in circulated condition. Major mint anomalies are rare but possible, such as repunched mint marks or minor die doubling. Provenance is often unremarkable unless a coin comes from a specially preserved hoard. And registry competition drives value for top examples, particularly in MS67 or MS68 red. Now let's imagine a hypothetical scenario where a 1962D penny becomes truly legendary. What would need to happen? Unique mint error. The coin would need a dramatic, previously unknown error, for instance, a large hub doubling, a foreign metal strike, or a die break creating a unique variety of pristine preservation. It would have to be flawless in red MS68 or higher, untouched since minting, documented provenance, ideally, part of a recognized hoard or with a known chain of custody proving authenticity. Verification and publicity, authentication by PCGS, NGC, or other top grading. Authorities, followed by broad media recognition to create global awareness. Even with all these factors aligned, a value in the hundreds of millions remains highly theoretical. The historical context and uniqueness of other legendary coins, such as the 1933 Double Eagle or 1913 Liberty Nickel, is unmatched. The 1962D penny could reach extraordinary value relative to other memorial cents, but extreme hype numbers must be approached skeptically. Next, let's discuss comparative market behavior. Coins like the 1962D are influenced by relative scarcity among collector competition. High population years like 1962D see fewer auction price spikes than years with naturally low mintage or major anomalies. However, coins with exceptional eye appeal, bold red color, perfect strike, flawless surfaces still attract premium pricing. Auction results from MS67 red examples show consistent multi-hundred to low $1,000 sales. In contrast, even mid-range coins, like MS65 red, sell for only a fraction of that. Now let's explore the economics of registry competition. Registry sets assign points based on grade and rarity. When two collectors compete for the top spot, prices can escalate. The 1962D penny, being moderately common but condition scarce, can see dramatic bidding for top population examples. If the coin is MS68 red, registry competition could realistically push it toward five-figure territory, a remarkable return for a 1-cent coin, even though still far below sensationalized viral claims. Another consideration is global collector interest. While the US dominates Lincoln cent collecting, international collectors, especially in Europe and Asia, increasingly participate. The scarcity in high-grade condition creates an international market dynamic, adding liquidity and competitive tension to auctions. Let's also examine error coin economics in theoretical terms. A 1962D penny with a significant error, for example, a strong doubled die, would suddenly be valued differently. Even without a gold planchet or extreme rarity claim, such an error could make the coin highly sought after. In such a scenario, the market would adjust not based on mintage or historical normalcy, but based on uniqueness, desirability, and collectability. Finally, let's address the psychological factor. The story of the 1962D penny highlights a recurring theme in coin collecting: potential versus reality. Everyone wants to find the next big coin, the one that transforms pocket change into fortune. This optimism fuels hobby participation, roll searches, and coin show exploration. While not every coin becomes legendary, the search itself provides educational and emotional value. The section that dives into the most advanced technical aspects of the 1962D Lincoln cent, the microscopic die markers, subtle varieties, grading nuances, auction case studies, and collector strategies for acquiring and preserving the most valuable examples. This part is where serious collectors, numismatic specialists, and enthusiasts separate themselves from casual hobbyists. Let's start with microscopic die markers, which are tiny details on a coin that identify the exact die used to strike it. Every coin die develops unique features, whether from the hubbing process, polishing, or wear. On a 1962D penny, collectors often examine small details in Lincoln's hair, the ear, the cheekbone, and the lines of the coat lapel. These areas are critical because they are high relief points that show contact with the die most clearly. For example, some 1962D coins may have slight die polish lines or faint die scratches. These are subtle lines left when the die was polished or cleaned to remove early imperfections. While these marks don't necessarily reduce grade, they allow specialists to attribute a coin to a particular die pair. Knowing which die struck the coin is essential for identifying varieties, including repunched mint marks, slight doubled dies, and other anomalies. Speaking of subtle varieties, the 1962 D penny has a handful of recognized minor varieties, though none are dramatically famous like the 1955 doubled die. Common areas where varieties occur include repunched mint marks, RPMs. The D mint mark may have slight doubling if it was punched more than once. Under magnification, a faint shadow of the original punch may be visible. Dramatic RPMs are more valuable than minor ones. Weak reverse strikes. Occasionally, coins may show incomplete detail on the Lincoln Memorial, particularly in the interior steps or the columns. While these are usually not highly valuable, extreme weak strikes or overstrikes on experimental planchets can be collector-worthy. Minor die cracks. Cracks develop as dies wear out, leaving raised lines on the coin surface. If a crack intersects high points like Lincoln's shoulder or the memorial steps, it can create an aesthetically interesting coin. Next, let's examine grading nuances. Even within the same numeric grade, coins can differ dramatically in value. For the 1962 D penny MS65 red versus MS65 red brown, both are technically the same grade numerically, but full red coins are far more desirable. MS67 red with excellent eye appeal, a coin with original vibrant luster, minimal contact marks, and strong strike can command a premium over another MS67 red that lacks visual impact. Surface preservation, tiny nicks, scratches, or carbon spots can reduce value dramatically even if the coin is technically uncirculated. Grading is therefore part science, part art. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate color, strike, luster, and surface quality holistically. Even top collectors submit multiple coins, hoping for slight upgrades to improve value. Let's move into auction case studies, which reveal how real-world transactions define value. In the past decade, 1962 D pennies graded MS67 red have consistently sold in the range of several hundred to over $1,000 at reputable auctions. Coins with subtle repunched mint marks or very minor doubled dies may sell for a premium above this range. When a coin appears in MS68 red, extremely rare auction results have approached several $1,000s. These results demonstrate that scarcity and quality drive the market far more than the original face value of 1 cent. Another case study involves condition rarity versus population reports. Suppose a collector identifies a 1962 D penny that is visually striking, perfectly centered, with full red luster and minimal marks. They submit it to a grading service. If it grades MS68 red, and the population report shows only 2 others at that level, the coin becomes one of the most elite known examples. In a registry set competition, this coin could attract multiple aggressive bidders, driving price to maximum market potential. Next, let's discuss collector strategies for acquisition. Roll searching. While it is low cost, finding an MS66 red or above is extremely rare. Experienced collectors focus on unsearched original bankrolls and preserved hoards. Estate purchases. Sometimes old collections contain untouched coins. Purchasing coins directly from estates can yield high-grade examples without competitive auction pressure. Dealer sourcing. Experienced dealers can often identify overlooked high-grade 1962 D pennies that may not be listed online. Networking within the numismatic community is key. Auction vigilance. Top collectors track live and online auctions, bidding strategically on elite examples and monitoring population reports to assess scarcity. Now let's discuss preservation techniques. Copper coins like the 1962 D are highly susceptible to environmental damage. Humidity. Even mild moisture can produce toning or small verdigris spots. Air pollutants, sulfur compounds and other chemicals can darken surfaces or degrade luster. Improper handling, oils from fingers, scratches from rough holders, or abrasive cleaning can destroy value instantly. Therefore, top collectors use certified holders, mylar flips, or airtight capsules. Coins are stored in climate-controlled environments to prevent degradation. Even tiny mistakes in storage can reduce the coin's market value dramatically. Finally, let's examine microscopic authentication techniques. Experts may use high magnification microscopes, digital imaging, and metal composition analysis to detect altered mint marks. Cleaning damage or chemical toning. Surface tool marks inconsistent with mint production. Unique die markers confirming authenticity and die attribution. These techniques are particularly important for rare high-grade coins or ones with potential error varieties. Authentication safeguards both value and provenance. We move beyond individual coin mechanics and focus on comparative value, economic dynamics, and historical context. How the 1962 D Lincoln cent stacks up against other U.S. coins in extreme rarity, what drives collector psychology, and why some pennies achieve iconic status while others remain modestly valued despite similar mintage. First, let's compare the 1962D penny to other highly sought Lincoln cents. Coins like the 1955 double die obverse, the 1969s small date, or the 1972 double die obverse are legendary because they combine low survivorship with dramatic mint errors. These coins have achieved six-figure and even seven-figure auction prices because the errors are visually obvious, historically significant, and have limited high-grade examples. By contrast, the 1962D penny, while high in mintage, becomes rare only in extreme condition. Its scarcity is condition-driven rather than error-driven. In practical terms, a flawless MS67 red or MS68 red 1962D is considerably more valuable than the average coin, but it does not command the stratospheric prices of the most famous Lincoln errors. Its rarity lies in the fact that very few coins survived untouched after more than 60 years of circulation, handling, and natural degradation. Next, let's discuss economic dynamics in the coin market. Every collectible market follows supply and demand principles, but coins also have psychological value. Supply: the number of surviving coins in top grades is extremely limited. Even though billions were minted, very few retain original red luster and flawless surfaces. Demand: registry set collectors, high-end investors, and international buyers all compete for top examples. Scarcity effect: as population reports show fewer MS67 or MS68 red coins, buyer urgency increases, pushing prices higher. Media influence: viral claims about multi-million-dollar value, even if exaggerated, temporarily spike interest and perception of rarity, attracting new collectors who may invest. In slightly lower grade examples, this combination of objective scarcity and subjective desirability drives realistic premiums. High-grade 1962D pennies have sold consistently at several hundred to thousands of dollars at auction, depending on eye appeal and population scarcity. While these numbers are far below sensationalized figures, they are still extraordinary when you consider the coin's 1 cent face value. Now let's explore historical context, which is critical in numismatics. The year 1962 is situated in the Cold War era, just before major U.S. economic shifts and during the Kennedy administration. The Denver Mint was operating at peak efficiency, producing massive quantities of pennies to meet domestic demand. While 1962D pennies were not unique historically, they are representative of post-World War II industrial America. Coins that circulated in daily life, witnessed historical events, and survived decades in pocket change, jars, and coin rolls. Historical context also matters when comparing the coin to legendary rarities. A coin like the 1933 Double Eagle achieves astronomical value because of both rarity, only a few exist, and historical significance. U.S. gold recall during the Great Depression. The 1962D penny lacks extreme rarity but gains value through condition scarcity and collector competition. Now let's examine collectability strategy relative to other coins. Advanced collectors evaluate coins like this entry-level investment. Circulated 1962D pennies are accessible and affordable. New collectors can start with lower-grade examples to learn grading, eye appeal, and storage practices. Mid-level investment: MS65-66 red coins are rarer, with some premium opportunities. Collectors may cherry-pick coins with better color or strike for eventual upgrades. Elite-level investment: MS67-68 red coins are true gems. Few exist, and registry set competition elevates their value. Owning one places a collector among the elite within the Lincoln Memorial Series. This tiered approach mirrors other series, but what makes 1962D unique is the sheer contrast between its mass production and condition rarity. Billions were made, yet the number of coins that survived in pristine condition is exceedingly small, which creates opportunity for attentive collectors. Let's also touch on market volatility and long-term potential. Coins with high condition rarity tend to appreciate steadily over decades. While the 1962D penny won't rival ultra-rare gold coins in headline value, a pristine MS68 red today may see value multiply over the next 20 to 30 years as surviving examples decline. Scarcity in elite condition is essentially guaranteed to increase slowly due to natural attrition. Coins are lost, damaged, or degraded annually. Furthermore, the 1962D penny benefits from collectible psychology. Many collectors begin with pennies because they are affordable, familiar, and widely available. As these collectors mature and aim to complete high-grade sets, demand for the top population 1962D coins rises. This long-term collector pipeline creates stable demand for premium examples. Finally, let's examine realistic extreme scenarios. Suppose a coin from this year was discovered with a dramatic repunched mint mark, exceptionally bold doubling, or some other unique attribute. Suddenly, a previously ordinary 1962D penny could be considered a serious rarity. Its market value could spike into multiple thousands of dollars, and in a highly competitive auction environment, possibly higher. This demonstrates the difference between standard condition rarity and exceptional anomaly rarity. To summarize Part 8, the 1962D penny is condition scarce rather than naturally rare. Compared to legendary Lincoln errors, its baseline value is lower but still significant in top grades. Market behavior is driven by population scarcity, appeal, registry competition, and collector psychology. Historical context enhances desirability, even if not as dramatically as historically iconic coins. Long-term value increases slowly as surviving elite coins become scarcer and demand remains steady. We continue by comparing the 1962D Lincoln cent to other key Lincoln memorial cents, exploring extreme rarity case studies, understanding what truly makes a penny legendary, and analyzing the theoretical conditions required for a coin like the 1962D to reach extraordinary levels of value. This is where we combine historical, technical, and market analysis to fully appreciate the dynamics at play. Let's begin with extreme rarity comparisons. While the 1962D penny is common in circulated form, some Lincoln memorial cents from the same era are far scarcer in top grades. For example, coins like the 1969S small date or the 1969S doubled die obverse are among the most famous Lincoln cent rarities in terms of price realized at auction. These coins were produced in smaller quantities or have dramatic minting anomalies that distinguish them from standard circulation examples. By contrast, the 1962D lacks a widely recognized major double die or major mint anomaly, but condition rarity can still create competitive value. The key takeaway here is that scarcity in high-grade MS67 red or above is far more important than sheer mintage numbers. While 1.79 billion coins were minted in Denver in 1962, only a tiny fraction have survived untouched and in perfect condition. That's why experienced collectors always emphasize eye appeal, original luster, and surface quality over raw mintage. Next, let's discuss what truly makes a penny legendary. Legendary coins usually have one or more of the following characteristics: historical significance, coins associated with major events, transitions, or prominent eras. For example, the 1943 bronze cent made during the wartime steel penny era, extremely low surviving population, only a handful of examples exist in high grades, major mint errors or anomalies, dramatic doubled dies, off-metal strikes, or misstrikes that are visually obvious. Provenance and documentation, coins with a well-documented ownership history, often linked to famous collectors or discoveries. Desirability among top collectors, coins that compete in registry sets or among elite collections. The 1962D penny satisfies some of these criteria but not all. Its historical significance is moderate. It's a Denver mint coin struck during the Cold War era, which is interesting but not unique. Population scarcity exists only in high mint state grades, not in circulated condition. Major mint anomalies are rare but possible, such as repunched mint marks or minor die doubling. Provenance is often unremarkable unless a coin comes from a specially preserved hoard. And registry competition drives value for top examples, particularly in MS67 or MS68 red. Now let's imagine a hypothetical scenario where a 1962D penny becomes truly legendary. What would need to happen? Unique mint error. The coin would need a dramatic, previously unknown error, for instance, a large hub doubling, a foreign metal strike, or a die break creating a unique variety of pristine preservation. It would have to be flawless in red MS68 or higher, untouched since minting, documented provenance, ideally, part of a recognized hoard or with a known chain of custody proving authenticity. Verification and publicity, authentication by PCGS, NGC, or other top grading authorities, followed by broad media recognition to create global awareness. Even with all these factors aligned, a value in the hundreds of millions remains highly theoretical. The historical context and uniqueness of other legendary coins, such as the 1933 Double Eagle or 1913 Liberty Nickel, is unmatched. The 1962D penny could reach extraordinary value relative to other memorial cents, but extreme hype numbers must be approached skeptically. Next, let's discuss comparative market behavior. Coins like the 1962D are influenced by relative scarcity among collector competition. High population years like 1962D see fewer auction price spikes than years with naturally low mintage or major anomalies. However, coins with exceptional eye appeal, bold red color, perfect strike, flawless surfaces still attract premium pricing. Auction results from MS67 red examples show consistent multi-hundred to low $1,000 sales. In contrast, even mid-range coins, like MS65 red, sell for only a fraction of that. Now let's explore the economics of registry competition. Registry sets assign points based on grade and rarity. When two collectors compete for the top spot, prices can escalate. The 1962 penny, being moderately common but condition scarce, can see dramatic bidding for top population examples. If the coin is MS68 red, registry competition could realistically push it toward five-figure territory, a remarkable return for a 1-cent coin, even though still far below sensationalized viral claims. Another consideration is global collector interest. While the US dominates Lincoln cent collecting, international collectors, especially in Europe and Asia, increasingly participate. The scarcity and high-grade condition creates an international market dynamic, adding liquidity and competitive tension to auctions. Let's also examine error coin economics in theoretical terms. A 1962 penny with a significant error, for example, a strong doubled die, would suddenly be valued differently. Even without a gold planchet or extreme rarity claim, such an error could make the coin highly sought after. In such a scenario, the market would adjust not based on mintage or historical normalcy, but based on uniqueness, desirability, and collectability. Finally, let's address the psychological factor. The story of the 1962 penny highlights a recurring theme in coin collecting: potential versus reality. Everyone wants to find the next big coin, the one that transforms pocket change into fortune. This optimism fuels hobby participation, roll searches, and coin show exploration. While not every coin becomes legendary, the search itself provides educational and emotional value. The section that dives into the most advanced technical aspects of the 1962 Lincoln cent, the microscopic die markers, subtle varieties, grading nuances, auction case studies, and collector strategies for acquiring and preserving the most valuable examples. This part is where serious collectors, numismatic specialists, and enthusiasts separate themselves from casual hobbyists. Let's start with microscopic die markers, which are tiny details on a coin that identify the exact die used to strike it. Every coin die develops unique features, whether from the hubbing process, polishing, or wear. On a 1962 penny, collectors often examine small details in Lincoln's hair, the ear, the cheekbone, and the lines of the coat lapel. These areas are critical because they are high relief points that show contact with the die most clearly. For example, some 1962 coins may have slight die polish lines or faint die scratches. These are subtle lines left when the die was polished or cleaned to remove early imperfections. While these marks don't necessarily reduce grade, they allow specialists to attribute a coin to a particular die pair. Knowing which die struck the coin is essential for identifying varieties, including repunched mint marks, slight doubled dies, and other anomalies. Speaking of subtle varieties, the 1962 penny has a handful of recognized minor varieties, though none are dramatically famous like the 1955 doubled die. Common areas where varieties occur include repunched mint marks, RPMs. The D mint mark may have slight doubling if it was punched more than once. Under magnification, a faint shadow of the original punch may be visible. Dramatic RPMs are more valuable than minor ones. Weak reverse strikes. Occasionally, coins may show incomplete detail on the Lincoln Memorial, particularly in the interior steps or the columns. While these are usually not highly valuable, extreme weak strikes or overstrikes on experimental planchets can be collector-worthy. Minor die cracks. Cracks develop as dies wear out, leaving raised lines on the coin surface. If a crack intersects high points like Lincoln's shoulder or the memorial steps, it can create an aesthetically interesting coin. Next, let's examine grading nuances. Even within the same numeric grade, coins can differ dramatically in value. For the 1962 penny MS65 red versus MS65 red brown, both are technically the same grade numerically, but full red coins are far more desirable. MS67 red with excellent eye appeal, a coin with original vibrant luster, minimal contact marks, and strong strike can command a premium over another MS67 red that lacks visual impact. Surface preservation, tiny nicks, scratches, or carbon spots can reduce value dramatically even if the coin is technically uncirculated. Grading is therefore part science, part art. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate color, strike, luster, and surface quality holistically. Even top collectors submit multiple coins, hoping for slight upgrades to improve value. Let's move into auction case studies, which reveal how real-world transactions define value. In the past decade, 1962D pennies graded MS67 red have consistently sold in the range of several hundred to over $1,000 at reputable auctions. Coins with subtle repunched mint marks or very minor doubled dies may sell for a premium above this range. When a coin appears in MS68 red, extremely rare auction results have approached several $1,000s. These results demonstrate that scarcity and quality drive the market far more than the original face value of 1 cent. Another case study involves condition rarity versus population reports. Suppose a collector identifies a 1962D penny that is visually striking, perfectly centered, with full red luster and minimal marks. They submit it to a grading service. If it grades MS68 red, and the population report shows only 2 others at that level, the coin becomes one of the most elite known examples. In a registry set competition, this coin could attract multiple aggressive bidders, driving price to maximum market potential. Next, let's discuss collector strategies for acquisition or role searching. While it is low cost, finding an MS66 red or above is extremely rare. Experienced collectors focus on unsearched original bankrolls and preserved towards the state purchases. Sometimes old collections contain untouched coins. Purchasing coins directly from estates can yield high-grade examples without competitive auction pressure. Dealer sourcing. Experienced dealers can often identify overlooked high-grade 1962D pennies that may not be listed online. Networking within the numismatic community is key. Auction vigilance. Top collectors track live and online auctions, bidding strategically on elite examples and monitoring population reports to assess scarcity. Now let's discuss preservation techniques. Copper coins like the 1962D are highly susceptible to environmental damage. Humidity, even mild moisture can produce toning or small verdigris spots. Air pollutants, sulfur compounds and other chemicals can darken surfaces or degrade luster. Improper handling, oils from fingers, scratches from rough holders, or abrasive cleaning can destroy value instantly. Therefore, top collectors use certified holders, mylar flips, or airtight capsules. Coins are stored in climate-controlled environments to prevent degradation. Even tiny mistakes in storage can reduce the coin's market value dramatically. Finally, let's examine microscopic authentication techniques. Experts may use high magnification microscopes, digital imaging, and metal composition analysis to detect altered mint marks, cleaning damage, or chemical toning. Surface tool marks inconsistent with mint production, unique die markers confirming authenticity, and die attribution. These techniques are particularly important for rare high-grade coins or ones with potential error varieties. Authentication safeguards both value and provenance. We bring everything into practical focus. This is where theory turns into real-world action. We're going to break down realistic valuation mechanics, how prices are actually determined, how auctions really work behind the scenes, and the practical steps collectors use to maximize the potential of a 1962D Lincoln cent. Let's begin with valuation mechanics. A coin's value is not random. It is determined by 5 primary forces working together: grade, color designation, strike quality, surface preservation, population scarcity. For the 1962D penny, these 5 factors interact in very specific ways. First, grade. A circulated 1962D penny in fine or very fine condition is worth only a few cents. Even extremely fine examples rarely exceed modest premiums. The real jump in value begins in mint state grades. MS63 red may bring a small premium. MS65 red increases noticeably. MS66 red becomes stronger. MS67 red is where things begin to accelerate significantly. MS67 plus or MS68 red is elite territory. Second, color designation. Copper coins are categorized as brown, BN, red-brown, RB, and red, RD. A 1962D penny graded MS67 brown might sell for dramatically less than an MS67 red. The difference can be hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on grade level. That's because original mint red luster is fragile and rare after 6 decades. Third, strike quality. Even in high grades, some coins have softer details. Strong hair detail on Lincoln, clean jawline contours, and sharp memorial columns improve desirability. Well-centered strikes with full rims also add appeal. Fourth, surface preservation. This is critical. Tiny contact marks on Lincoln's cheek or jaw can drop a coin from MS67 to MS66 instantly. Carbon spots are particularly damaging to value in red copper coins. Even one distracting spot can reduce auction results significantly. Fifth, population scarcity. Grading services publish how many examples exist at each grade level. If there are 200 coins graded MS67 red but only 5 graded MS68 red, the jump in scarcity creates a steep price curve. And now let's discuss how auction pricing really works. When a high-grade 1962D penny enters a major auction, several things happen behind the scenes. Registry collectors monitor listings carefully. Dealers analyze population data. Investors compare recent sales history. If the coin is top population or tied for finest known, bidding becomes emotional as well as strategic. Two determined bidders can drive price well beyond standard guide estimates, but if a similar coin sold recently at a high price and another appears too soon afterward, bidding may soften. Timing matters. Auction houses also influence visibility. High-resolution photography can make luster appear more vibrant, attracting stronger bids. Coins with exceptional eye appeal often outperform technically similar coins that look dull in images. Now let's talk about realistic pricing tiers in today's market context. Circulated 1962D pennies, usually 2 to 5 cents, mainly for copper value. Average uncirculated MS63, MS64 red, modest premiums. MS65 red, noticeable but still accessible to many collectors. MS66 red, stronger collector demand. MS67 red, high-end collectible, often hundreds to over $1,000 depending on eye appeal. MS68 red, extremely rare, potentially several $1,000s or more depending on registry competition. These are real-world ranges, not fantasy numbers. Now let's explore strategies to maximize value. Strategy 1. Selective submission. Before submitting a coin for grading, compare it carefully to certified examples online. Look for pristine surfaces, blazing luster, and minimal marks. Submitting average coins wastes money. Strategy 2. Buy the coin, not the holder. Even within the same grade, eye appeal differs. A superior MS67 red may outperform a weaker MS67 red in auction. Strategy 3. Monitor population changes. If MS68 population increases significantly, prices may adjust downward. Scarcity drives value. Always track it. Strategy 4. Long-term holding. Copper coins tend to appreciate slowly over decades rather than overnight. Patience is key. Strategy 5. Avoid cleaning. Cleaning destroys original surfaces and removes collector value instantly. Many ruined coins were once high-grade before being improperly cleaned. Now let's discuss a realistic pathway to significant profit. Imagine you discover a pristine 1962D penny in an original bankroll. After careful evaluation, you submit it and it grades MS67 plus red. If population reports show very few coins at that level, you now own a highly desirable registry piece. Selling at the right time, during strong collector demand, could produce a substantial return relative to your initial cost. Now let's address again the massive $199 million concept from a realistic standpoint. To reach that level, the coin would have to be absolutely unique, possess a dramatic, historic mint error. Be authenticated beyond doubt, have worldwide media coverage. Attract billionaire-level bidding competition. This scenario is extraordinarily unlikely for a standard 1962D penny. However, the fascination with such extreme possibilities is part of what keeps the hobby exciting. And here's something important: the percentage gain from 1 cent to even $5,000 is already astronomical in investment terms. The jump from 1 cent to $5,000 represents a 500,000% increase. That alone demonstrates the power of condition rarity. Now let's look forward. As time continues to pass, original red 1962D pennies will become harder to find. Natural toning, mishandling, and environmental exposure reduce the pool every year. This slow attrition supports long-term scarcity in elite grades. Meanwhile, new collectors enter the hobby each year. Lincoln cents remain one of the most popular entry points into numismatics. That consistent demand base stabilizes the market. The real lesson here is balance. Balance excitement with research, balance hype with verified auction data, balance optimism with grading discipline. The 1962D Lincoln cent is not a guaranteed fortune in pocket change. It is a coin whose value is unlocked by condition, knowledge, and patience. As we move toward the final part, we will bring everything together: the history, the grading science, the market reality, the investment strategy, and the collector mindset, and deliver the ultimate conclusion on the true potential of the 1962D penny and what it represents in the world of rare coins. Now we arrive at the final part of this deep, detailed journey into the world of the 1962 Lincoln cent, bringing together history, grading science, market psychology, rarity economics, and the truth behind extreme value claims. After everything we've explored, one thing becomes very clear. The 1962 penny is a perfect example of how ordinary objects can hold extraordinary potential, but only under specific conditions. Let's summarize the full picture. The 1962 penny was struck at the Denver Mint in massive quantities, nearly 1.8 billion coins. It weighs 3.11 grams and is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It carries the Lincoln Memorial reverse and the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. It was minted during a powerful era in American history, the Cold War, the Kennedy administration, the space race, and it circulated through everyday life in grocery stores, gas stations, classrooms, and neighborhoods across America. Most surviving examples today are common. Most are worth only a few cents, mainly for their copper content. That is the baseline reality, but here is where the story changes. When you shift from quantity to quality, everything transforms. In low grades, the 1962 penny is ordinary. In mid-mint state grades, it becomes collectible. In high mint state red grades, it becomes scarce. In ultra gem levels like MS67 Plus or MS68 red, it becomes elite. That is the dividing line. Billions were made. Very few survived in near-perfect condition. Time has worked against copper. Oxidation, handling, cleaning, environmental damage, all of these factors reduce the population of flawless coins every year, and that is where value lives. The coin market does not reward common survival, it rewards exceptional preservation. Now let's directly address the $199 million narrative once and for all. In verified numismatic history, no standard 1962 penny has sold anywhere near that number. There is no documented auction record supporting such a claim. Extreme headlines often exaggerate to capture attention. For a 1962 penny to approach that level of value, it would need to be completely unique, struck in a wrong metal, possibly gold, historically documented beyond doubt, authenticated by top authorities, the subject of global media attention, contested by ultra-wealthy collectors in a competitive auction. That combination of factors is extraordinarily rare, however, and this is important. The difference between 1 cent and several thousand dollars is already remarkable. An MS68 red 1962 penny selling for several $1,000s represents one of the greatest percentage returns imaginable relative to face value. That alone is extraordinary, but beyond price, the deeper story is about knowledge. When you study a coin like the 1962 penny, you learn how minting technology worked in the early 1960s. How grading standards determine value, how color designation impacts pricing, how registry competition influences auctions, how supply and demand interact in collectible markets, how hype spreads, and how data confirms reality. You learn to examine details, you learn patience, you learn discipline, you begin to see coins not as spare change, but as artifacts of history. That 1962 penny may have passed through countless hands. It may have bought candy in 1965. It may have sat in a drawer for decades. It may still be waiting inside a forgotten jar somewhere, quietly holding its potential. The beauty of coin collecting is that treasure does not always scream for attention. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. Now here is the ultimate truth. The 1962 penny is not about guaranteed millions. It is about possibility. It is about preservation. It is about condition rarity. It is about understanding how microscopic details can create massive differences in value. It teaches that even in a world of mass production, perfection is rare. And rarity, when recognized, creates value. So the next time you see a 1962 penny, don't dismiss it. Look closely. Check the mint mark. Examine the luster. Inspect the surfaces. Weigh it. Study it. Protect it, because while most are worth only a few cents, a tiny fraction rise above the rest, and those are the coins collectors chase. From billions struck, to a handful surviving in pristine condition, to registry battles and auction excitement, to thousands of dollars for a 1 cent coin, that is the real story of the 1962 Lincoln cent.